Good morning, Eric Boehlert.
Hey, good morning.
I don't suppose any of this NFL stuff could be any distraction from the Friday news dump about the, the 21 states being hacked into by Russia, and most of them being secure, and James Clapper saying this election was not legitimate. I don't suppose that could be. Do you connected?
Jared Kushner is using private emails.
Oh, there's that. Yeah. Well, no one's ever made a thing out of that. Mm-hmm.
That's such a non-story. The New York Times put it on page 18 today was for 500 words. So they're all over Jared.
Wow.
Well, there's two schools of thought on Trump and his race baiting and the racist attacks on the NFL. Either he is kind of being savvy, he's trying to create a distraction, and he realizes there's more bad news over the weekend, or he's just sort of a child with no discipline, and he's a racist, so he's going to say weird stuff. So, either way, I mean, both options are bad. You either give him credit for having some foresight, for planning his race baiting, or he just wakes up and does it and can't control himself, and he's still doing it this morning. While 3 million American citizens in Puerto Rico have no power, no food, no fuel, no hope, and he's focusing on these silent sideline protests that aren't doing anyone any harm. I mean, it's gross and it's astonishing. And particularly, he was such a fanboy of hurricanes when they hit the U.S., right? He'd run down there. The Republican Congress can't even, count the money, how much money they want to send to Florida and Texas and whatever. And this is just a total this is his Katrina. I mean, this is Bush response to New Orleans. That's what we're seeing in terms of the Trump response to Puerto Rico.
Spent the weekend golfing, trolling the NFL, and also probably distracting from this latest Trump care disaster with the news of John McCain on Friday.
Oh, yeah. And that's a good point. Right. So
as you tweeted, too, you said, reminder, GOP can end this dangerous nightmare if 4 or 5 senators just step forward and say enough. He's going to kill us all. Right?
Yeah, that was Friday night when he was basically threatening to blow up North Korea again, but in slightly even more explicit terms on Twitter. And so, I mean...
Right, he literally said they're not going to be around much longer.
Yeah. He's just going to kill them all.
I don't...
And Two can play that game.
And it's still... The press still kind of... the Sunday morning shows weren't... there was no level of outrage, not only about the NFL stuff, but about threatening to destroy an entire country, and we just see the same timidity, right?
Yeah.
Even if the White House bothers to have a press briefing today, they haven't had one in like a week. They don't really care.
Right.
And if they are, I doubt anyone will ask about Jared Kushner using private emails, or if they do, it'll be a single question. Huckabee Sanders will give a non-answer, and that will be the extent of the coverage. So we've seen this story before. Well,
and by the way, you had a great tweet. You said, by the way, it was a moral disgrace that so many NFL owners backed racist Trump in 2016 when their $60 billion business is built on the backs of black players. A good point.
Yeah, I mean, I was tweeting about that during the campaign, and I would see, Kraft and other NFL owners the former New York Jets coach was introducing Trump at a rally. Tom Brady, I guess, had a "Make America Great" hat in his locker. It just boggled my mind. Everyone knew he was a racist. Everyone knew he was promoting a white nationalist platform. And you're in a locker room. You own a team that's 85% black. I mean, to me, that was disgusting. And I couldn't understand how these people, particularly players like Tom Brady, who's been immersed in the culture of football since he was 8 years old, and then would say Trump's my guy. But anyway, the good news is Trump has completely unified the NFL. Even Tom Brady is no longer a fan. GOP billionaire owners stood up for their players the way they should have stood up for them last year. So Trump did an amazing thing. He took a kind of a back burner, simmering sideline protest, which has been going on for a year, and involved maybe a dozen or so players, and yesterday it just exploded into full view. Over 150 players participated.
Yep.
He turned this into a national phenomenon.
No, we were actually saying during the break that we feel like we thought a lot of these marches have been big. When he's gone, I think it's going to be like the day we got Bin Laden. I think there's going to be tiny hands across America. It's going to really be a thing, I think.
So, if NFL players who are protesting wanted a national platform to shine a light on the issues they were concerned about, inequality, police brutality, Donald Trump just did it yesterday.
Yeah.
He created a phenomenon yesterday. And the NFL, and again, most of these owners, these are Republican, self-made billionaires. These are not kumbaya type of guys. They stood up for their players.
Yeah.
Said,
by the way, so on top of all this, I know I say it every week, but this may have been the worst week and weekend that we've had yet. And there's, our true president, Hillary Clinton, on TV, right, with Joy Reid, with Rachel. I read half the book on the plane. It is. You wrote this piece. Joe Scarborough comes clean, admits the press was pretty damn hostile to Hillary Clinton. Thank you. Because you can tell Trump's freaking out. He had tweeted, "The Russia hoax continues. Now it's ads on Facebook. What about the totally biased and dishonest media coverage in favor of crooked Hillary?" I mean, as you write, you say the punchline, of course, is the Beltway press and corporate media spent most of 2016 trying to bury Clinton, obsessing about her emails, blah, 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 right? I mean, it is insane that he's trying to spin this, correct?
Yeah, there was absolutely, about the end of my piece, I said, hey, it's great that Joe Scarborough is coming around and conceding this. It would be nice if there was some self-awareness.
Yeah.
He was a main culprit, and he turned his show into an infomercial for a race-baiting white nationalist last year. But hey, we'll take the good with the bad. And so if Joe Scarborough, who has been a Hillary Clinton troll for well over a decade, before trolls we knew what trolls were, if he wants to come out and say on national television that the press was hostile and brutal.
Yeah, I don't care if Mika brought him around, if it was ratings, but welcome to the light, Joe.
And if he wants to confirm everything that Hillary is detailing in her book, then good for him. And I would urge more reporters to do the same, to embrace an ounce of self-awareness instead of doing this blind march where we got everything right. They didn't. There's yet another study out I just saw over the weekend. The two biggest issues of Hillary Clinton coverage, of course, the emails, and guess what's second? The Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
So, right, two total BS manufactured air quote scandal stories. They got more coverage they got like 10 times coverage of her agenda, of her policies, of what she wanted to do when she was president, i.e. what campaign coverage used to be about before the press decided they wanted to troll and try to humiliate her for 8 months. So, there's a lot more work to be done by the press, but
and what I've read,
I'll clap slowly for Joseph Scarborough at the moment.
Right, and Eric, I have to say, everything I've read so far in her book, she's dead on correct, and the fact that people keep saying she doesn't take any blame, she takes plenty. In fact, we had someone on Friday that said I think she took too much blame. Because you go back and notate when they write the history of this election, in addition to Russia, the sexism, you talked about the whole thing about one rally she gave. Scarborough said, has no one told her microphone works? And they had an entire lengthy discussion about her screaming, claiming she's being too feisty, she's not acting natural. And then you say he was one of the many men that felt the need to tell Clinton to smile at random times. I remember one of those times I was like, she's talking about ISIS. Like, what?
Why aren't you smiling about ISIS?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
I'll never forget Chris Matthews interrupting one of her speeches to say she interrupts too much.
Yeah. Well, look, there were 19 things that were wrong with the coverage. Part of it was she's too calculating, and then when she spoke from the heart, it was all wrong, right? She wore the wrong clothes. She had the wrong resting face. She didn't know how to use a microphone. This is a woman who's been on the national stage for a quarter of a century, has a resume unlike any other woman in modern American history, and she doesn't know how to use a microphone? Come on.
Yeah.
The mansplaining, the condescension. But look, and the key point that people need to understand is the press did that because they were sure she was going to win.
Yeah.
and now they mock her. Why did she lose? They all thought she was going to win. They embraced their job as mocking her and humiliating her. They wanted her to limp across the finish line.
Yeah.
That is hands down, all through the fall campaign, what they saw their job was to make sure she limped across the finish line, that it was a joyless event, that she could not claim a mandate, and that she basically regretted the whole thing. And they miscalculated because they didn't realize that there's...
Yeah, no, I mean, I've said that before, tuning into Morning Joe. I mean, I think there is real, recognition of guilt and horror at what this has wrought.
Yeah, and they created it, and they did it because they didn't like her personally, and they wanted to make her campaign as unpleasant as possible. They didn't realize that they could actually, help tilt the election, and now.
Right. Well, I mean, when you stand back and you see the whole story, Eric, it's not just Russia, Facebook, all that. It's just the media amplified all that stuff, all the WikiLeaks, all the email stuff, as if it was the biggest thing in the world. And as you say, the fact that everyone in the White House currently, including Jared, is using private email just puts another layer on this whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the Wikipedia stuff was the perfect example, right? They doled that out on a daily...
WikiLeaks. Wikipedia is different.
WikiLeaks, thank you. They doled that stuff out on an almost daily occurrence. There was no news in any of the stories, but the press loved it because they thought it made her look bad. All we got was John Podesta's, recipes. That was
it is good risotto. I have to say that. Yeah.
But again, going back to the book, which is a publishing phenomenon, 300,000 copies sold.
Yep.
She had the best first week sales for a nonfiction book in 5 years. As Cher Blue pointed out, she sold more books in 1 week than Donald Trump's campaign book sold in 2 years. Right?
A T and then a he.
He put out a book in 2015 to hype his campaign, and she outsold it in 1 week. But
she wins again.
She wins again. She got more voters and more book purchases. And but your point is a good one. When you read the book, it really does put it in perspective. It's not a blame fest. It's not a whine fest. But you take it. You kind of take a step back and you look at all the things that were going on. And yes, it's depressing, and yes, it's upsetting. But it's helpful. It's helpful to put, kind of that...
I mean, Eric, James Clapper said it on CNN. Our intelligence, yes, showed that this election was not legitimate, period.
That's right. And when you read it, you're gonna hate James Comey all over again.
I know.
For the October surprise, and that's what it was. But, it really does make a fool of all the people, and particularly people who hadn't read the book yet. Oh, she's such an awful candidate. How did she lose to this guy? How did she lose to this guy? There are 14 different reasons. Unprecedented, borderline criminal reasons she lost to this guy.
Yeah, well, I don't think I think it's going to be proven not to be borderline anymore at some point.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
And her not smiling and her not being warm, supposedly, that ain't one of the 14 reasons.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
People who won't acknowledge what didn't happen, they're not doing any help, particularly to the Democratic Party or to the progressive movement.
Yeah, that's right. Eric, thanks as always. By the way, I agree with you on the Wikipedia scandal. We have to do something about that. People can write anything on there, and it's not true.
It ain't right, man.
That's right. All right. All right. Thank you, Eric. See you next week.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Yeah, I apparently was in some horror movie. I was never in. I'll get to the bottom of this.